every painting begins with a grid. I draw this out on the canvas, and it looks pretty much like this. And then I draw an image or a scene or whatever it is that I'm doing. I draw around the grid. So this is an example of one painting, and so this is the next step, a drawing. And then I paint in layers of paint, very thin layers. It's a little soupier, a little wetter than tomato soup. And then I sand through the layers, and eventually I get something that's really variegated, like that. Like the image of the cat right here is very mottled because it has so many layers of color, and I've sanded through, and so they start to combine after a while. And just recently, I've started painting on film, and so I still get the variegation from the water resist effect, but the painting is much lighter and easier to deal with, to handle. The paint brushes that I've been using for the past year or so are made with blue squirrel. They're made in Russia. They're very expensive, and but they hold a lot of water. They're called mops, and so I don't have to dip into the paint as frequently. I can get a long stroke of paint with just one dipping. And there's basically three different kinds of paintings that I do. I do some that are based on a realistic subject, and or one that's completely imaginary, like a dream or an experience in the past. And for example, this painting right here is of a swan with a turtle riding on its back. And this was just an imaginary subject. I thought that it would be really interesting to juxtapose a elegant animal like a swan against a lowly turtle reptile. And so the story of this painting is that the lowly turtle gets a ride by the elegant swan across the pond, for which he is eternally grateful. Then the other, another kind of painting that I do is represented over here. These are icons, usually just one subject in each one, and these are imaginary too, but they're cross-cultural. That's the whole purpose in my doing this. My thesis was based on this sort of content, and so I tried it in a lot of other paintings as well. The only other thing I wanted to bring out was the way I've decorated my home. I've tried to make it into a gallery, and as you can see, every wall has a painting on it. I even have paintings that don't have a place on a wall. They're starting to pile up. And so when I do finally have a show, it'll be a whopper. Okay. So in here, in the bedroom, I have some more of those dream state or thought problem paintings. These are completely imaginary. They are either from dreams or from past experiences that I've had. And these ones over here, this one's about paradise, which comes from my background in the study of the Bible. And this one is called meditation. This is the current. I use a different logo every year to stand for a year, and this is the current year's logo. Then, if you want to go into this next room, I have my thesis. These are all iconographical, and these represent the levels of knowledge that was part of my thesis, my master's thesis. And so I've covered my whole wall. My landlord will probably pitch a fit when he sees how many holes I put in the walls. But here again is another imaginary content picture, and then this one over here is this is actually a composite of imagination and actual real content. This is Pioneer Square down in Seattle, but it shows me walking through the scene, which I just imagined, and I just inserted myself into the picture. Another thing that I have to show is my pride and joy. I believe this is probably the best painting I've ever done. The content was inspired by my trip to Maui. It consists of birds of paradise flowers that actually grow in bushes in Hawaii. And then the bluebirds of happiness are flying in to nest on these flowers. And my cat Amicus is in the corner. Then on this wall over here, I have the oldest example of the technique that I've been using for years. It shows all of the variegation that happens because of water resistance. And it's actually a form of fractal formation. And so I've used not only fractal formation in the geometry of the composition, but also in the technique.